Hi, everyone. This is Dr. David Branham. Today, we're doing a video on basically how to do test two in basic statistical analysis, the 1 hour class for graduate students. This is going on this video. I'm going to have the data set that you're going to use to do test two, and then I'm going to go over test two with you and basically show you how to get the answers to that. Now, if you're an expert at Excel, you can probably do all this without my help at all. That's fine. You can do that, turn that in. You may have some tips for me, and that would be great. But if you're not good at Excel, this will be a good video for you to go step by step and be able to do what you can do to do the assignment. So I'm going to begin by sharing the screen. And what I'm sharing here is the data that you have for the assignment. If you look there, you have rows A through H. Those columns A through H. Those columns are basically variables. So, I start out with student number because students, each row is a student and each row is a unit of analysis. So our unit of analysis is student and each column is a variable. Now, the unit of analysis here is the student because this is a data set of Lincoln Private School, and it's an elementary school, and this is the data set of all students in the class, grades 1 through 7. In this data set, we have two interventions. One was backpacks and supplies, where backpacks and supplies were provided to the school. There wasn't enough backpacks and supplies to go to all of the students. So those supplies were randomly given out to students. There was no criteria for getting it. It was just whoever got those randomly got those. They chose each student randomly and gave them out. That meant that some students didn't get them, some students did, but if you did or did not get it, it was just completely by chance. The second intervention in column D is shuttle service to the school. Now, it was found that students who lived at a certain distance from the school who were not getting transportation to the school, they looked at the previous test scores the previous year, and they showed that those students were not doing quite as well as they wanted them to do. So they thought that maybe an intervention where they shoved the students into the school would help with those test scores. So those were not randomly given out. The shuttle service was not randomly given out to students. That service was given to students who lived that distance that needed that service. So you have two interventions here, one with the backpack and supplies, one with the shuttle service to the school. And then you have 4 other variables, which are the test scores. So you have a reading test score from 2022. That was their last reading test score taken in May of 2022. So if their grade is 1 here, which is first grade, that means they took that last test in 2022 at the end of their kindergarten year. Then you have reading test 2023. That test was taken at the end of their first grade year. So you have a comparison. And each year they do these tests where they see where each student is at each level. So you have the previous year's test, and then you have a comparison test the next year. So in this case, in this data set, we have the 2022 test and the 2023 test. And we can see whether or not the students improved, whether they stayed the same, or whether they actually got worse in the subject area. So you have the columns, which are variables, the test scores, the interventions, whether shuttle service, backpack. You have a column B, the second column over there, which just is basically what grade they were in 2023. And then column A is the student number. We just entered the student numbers. Now, on test 2, the first question is basically, it just asks, how many total students are there at Lincoln Private School? Well, because the student numbers are numbered, you could just scroll down and see how many numbers there are. And you can see that, there's 400 students in school. If you didn't have that student number, though, you could also do it by looking at the side row, because Excel has a number on the side. Remember that the top row is the variables. So you don't want to count those. That top row, that row 1, is not a student. It's not a unit of analysis. Row 2 starts the unit of analysis. So if we look down and see how many rows we have 401 rows, starting with number 2, which would mean that we have 400 students. That would be the answer. The other thing you can do to get the number is simply scroll down on the students. Just scroll down on the column. And if you look here on the bottom, you can see that the Excel gives you the count. Now, if you go to the custom status bar, which you can do if you go down that row and you right click on it, you can adjust this. You can have, I like to have average no matter what, because we're going to need that a lot on this assignment. So average is there, but you have a lot of other things that you can put in there. And so you want to make sure you have that. But one of the things it gives you is count. So if you look down here at the arrow, excuse me on that, if you look down here at the arrow and count, it says 400 is the count. So you can get the answer that way. So the answer number 1, there's 3 ways to get it. So you can get it that way. Number 2 is, what is the number of students who received backpacks? And then the number who didn't. So what you need to do is go to the variable here and look at the backpack variable, and you can basically scroll. Now, this should be a freeze pane for you, but if it's not a freeze pane, because I like to have that top row frozen, so you can always see the variables. So if you go to view, if you look over here on the right, there's freeze panes. You can hit that, and then the center option on freeze panes is to just freeze the top row. So I'm going to freeze the top row. And that way, if I scroll down through my data, you can see the top row is always there. Even if I go down to 170, top row, I can see it all the way down. So first thing I would do is just do that freeze pane, and then go back to your home so that you can have these other variables that are probably more important to the assignment. So you have it all over here. You have the backpack and supplies. What you're going to need to do here is you're going to be able to count those who have the backpack and those who don't. Now, you don't want to be counting all the yeses and then counting on the no's by scrolling down one by one counting. You want to get that count just like you did on the first one. So what you're going to have to do is sort out column C. So those yeses and no's will all be together. So I'm highlighting all the students in column C. Now, I'm not highlighting the top row because I don't want that to be in the sort. So I highlighted all the students, all 400 students are highlighted now. So I go to the top, and there's over at the end, it says sort and filter. So I left click on sort and filter, and the first option is sort and filter smallest to largest. That's always column A. We don't want to do column A in this case, so we want to do column C. So you need to scroll down to custom sort. And if you go to custom sort, then this little box opens up and it asks you which column that you want to sort over here. So I say sort by C. Also over here on the right, it says my data has headers. If you want to just scroll on all of it and just tap that and say my data has headers, it won't sort that top row. But in this case, I just highlighted the students, so I'm leaving that blank. And so I'm going to say okay, and it's going to sort my backpack students. So you can see the top one on number two, which is student number 26, but that's the top, is no. Did they have the backpacks and supplies? The answer is no. And if you scroll down, you can see all the no's are together, all the way down to 226. That means there's 225 no's. And then yeses are all together on C. And that goes all the way down. So if we do that count on the yeses, just scroll up the yeses, highlight them. Okay, highlight them there. I look over here down at the end, and it says count, and it says 175 down here at the bottom over here. So I have 175 people got the backpacks. And then I know that 225 didn't because there's 400 students, but I'll scroll it anyway just to make sure. And voila, we have 225. If I look down here at the count, the very bottom, in the bottom right-hand portion of the screen says count is 225. So I have the answer to number 2. Okay, then it asks the next question. What is the number of students who received the new shuttle service? So I'm going to do the same thing with shuttle service. I'm going to start by just scrolling down on all the students. Now on these, make sure you scroll the entire line across. Don't just scroll one column because that'll just mix up your data. So anytime you're sorting these variables, make sure that you scroll the entire row across, all the way across from one side to the other. Don't just do one variable, do all the variables. Okay, so that sort and filter, I'm going to come over here, custom sort again because I'm not doing A, and I'm going to change that C to a D because I want the shuttle service in D over there. And so now my shuttle service to school is sorted. So the first, the students who did not have it are at the top. It says no. So I'm going to scroll down on no's just to get a count of those no's. Okay, passed it a little bit, scroll back up to get it right on the nose. And I look down at my count and I know from my count down here on the bottom right portion of the screen, how many no's there were. So those are the people who didn't get the shuttle service. And then I got a bunch of yeses here, people who did get that shuttle service. Scroll on it, look down, I got the count. And I know both of them added together add up to 400. So I know I got all of them. So now I know how many got shuttle service, how many didn't, how many got the backpacks, how many didn't. And I have the answers to the first 2 questions. So the next question starts asking descriptive statistics, which is important. That's what we're presenting here is descriptive statistics. And it says, what is the mean of the reading test score in 2022? So to get that, I'm going to scroll that one column, and then I can right click, and down over here at the bottom, I have average. I know it's going to give me the average. It's also going to give me the count, the minimum and maximum, because that's what I've got highlighted there. I also have sum highlighted there. So those down at the bottom over here that you check will come up when you scroll on it. So I'm going to go to the top of the page. I'm going to get on reading score for 2022, and I'm going to scroll down reading score for 2022 because that's the answer to number 4. And I look down there, I have the average score, 78 point something, right? So go 2 decimals past the point. Go so to the 100th. So it's 78 point something something. I have it there. Put that in there for the answer to number 4. And then the other answers start asking the same questions. They ask other questions. The second question is, what's the standard deviation of the reading test scores for 2022? So to do that, you just need to find the standard deviation. And so that's rather simple. And what you need to do is just create a column over here to the side where you're going to put it, or just a cell. Just click into a cell where you're going to put it, and then you put equals, and then you put ST, and then you'll see a bunch of abbreviations, stdev.p, stdev.s, and so on. Now, there's really 2 that you're interested in. It's the stdevp, okay? That is the standard deviation of the population. If you remember on your test, that numerator for standard deviation of the population was just n. It was the number in your sample. So the numerator for the standard deviation of the population here would be 400. So right now on this one, we're going to ask for the population because we're looking at the population of all the students in Lincoln Private School. We're looking at the population there. So if this was a sample of a whole lot of students all in several different private schools, then we would go to the other one, which would be standard deviation, which would equal standard deviation S. And that would be where the numerator would have n minus 1. So that numerator would be 399 instead of 400. And that's only because you lose a degree of freedom when you take a sample. So in this case, we're looking at population. And if you have 400, the difference when the numerator is 400 and 399 is really minuscule. If you have a small sample or a small population, it's huge. But it's very minuscule when you have a big sample like this. So we're going to look here for the standard deviation of the population. It says that specifically on number 5, standard deviation of the population of the reading test scores for 2022. So you put in equals, start with equals, STD, and then it gives you the options up there, and you just click STDEV.P. And you left click on that, and then it says number 1 and number 2 up there. So what you want to do here is just basically scroll where you want that standard deviation. So I'm going to get the entire reading test score for 2022, all 400 of them. There, I meant to hide. Okay, it went out. Let me try it again. Equals STDP. Where'd it go? Where'd my equal sign go? I'm sorry. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, equals. Okay, I got something going wrong here. Okay, try it again. S, and I'm going to left click on STDEVP, and then I'm going to scroll reading test scores. For 2022, reading test scores. Scrolled it. Okay, did it go off? Ah, it went out. Okay, let me try it again. Sorry. Sometimes you just need a couple of tries. Okay. I'll put it over here again. I'm going to equals. That lets me equals. Carefully scroll. All those reading test scores. Okay, there it is. So I've got STDEV.P, and then in parentheses it says E2 colon E401. So it's going to give me the standard deviation of the population for E2 through E401, which is the reading test score column. Okay, and I'm going to close off that parentheses right there and then just hit return. And you'll see it gave me the standard deviation for that group of numbers. You can do it the other way too. If you know what the cells numbers are, you can do it manually, where you just say equals STDEV.P, click, and then I'm going to go E2, and then colon E401, because I know it's them, and then hit the parentheses and it comes up, right? Same exact thing. So if you want the standard deviation, you can do that. That's what you get it for number 5. It's, remember, put equals, start with equals, stdev.p, which once you put in std, it'll give you those options. Just left click on that option and then put in your numbers, which would be, if you want to type it in, F2 colon F401, and then close in those parentheses and hit return. It will give you your standard deviation. So it's a little easier than I made it look with that, because I made a couple typo errors, but it's fairly easy to get a standard deviation. So for number 5, you would do that. And then number 6 and 7 ask you to do it for 2023. 8 and 9 ask you to do it for the math test scores for 2022. And then number 10 and 11 do the same thing for the math scores for 2023. So you go through the same procedures. You're going to get a mean or an average test score for each of the 4 tests that are part of the variables here, which would be reading score in 2022, reading score in 2023, math score in 2022, math score in 2023. You'll be able to get the average score on each. You'll be able to get the standard deviation of each column, and then you'll be able to have those answers. So from there, answers 1 through 11 should be done for you. Just make sure you go through those procedures. Have any questions, send me an email and I'll answer your questions. So we'll go on to number 12. I'm going to get rid of this over here. Don't need that. Number 12. Number 12 says create an Excel column in your data for average scoring differences for reading scores. So I'm going to put read diff here, and that's the average scoring difference for reading scores. So I'm going to create this column by basically putting, I want it to equal the 2023 score, F2 on this column, F2 minus E2. And you notice what that does. It basically takes the 2023 score and then it goes to the 2022 score and it subtracts the 2022 score from the 2023 score. So the answer would be, in this case, 0, because in 2022, this student made an 86 on the reading score, and then in 2023, the student made another 86. So there was no difference. The difference was 0. Had the student had a higher score in 2023, this would be a positive number. So if the student would have had a lower score in 2023, it would have been a negative number. So you see the second student had a score of 86 in 2022 and then 76 in 2023. So if we look, I'm going to just copy from the top and paste, and you'll see it's minus 10. So the student's score went down 10 points from 2022 to 2023. That's the reading differential. So when you do that very first one, you don't have to type that in for each cell. You can just highlight that first cell that you did with that 0. Okay, just left click it and then right click and say copy, and then scroll down beneath it all the way down to the bottom. And then right click again and put paste. And it gives you every single differential for the entire data set. You have a reading differential there. And I'm going to put, just to clarify this, I'm going to put reading differential from 22 to 23. Okay, so this tells you the reading test score differential. I'll make it even better. Reading test score differential from 22 to 23. You have all that right there. And all you did was you did the equation for the first one, and then you copied it and it scrolls down. So if you look at it, you look at this one, if you look up in the cell, it says right here that is, because we're on row 313, it's F313 minus E313. So you see it just scrolled down through the data. Remember the first one, when we put it in, was simply F2 minus E2. The one below that, F3 minus E3. Below that, F4 minus E4. And so when you copy the top one and scroll down and then paste those in, all it does is does the same thing you did in row 2 for every single row all the way down to 401. So you can do that for that. And so it says create, number 12 says create an Excel column in your data for average scoring distance for reading scores. When you do that, look and make sure that you have those different, like I can see over here, 76 minus 66, that should be a minus 10. Okay, here, 70 minus 74, that should be 70 to 74, that should be a plus 4. So because 74 is higher than 70 in 2023. So go over there and check and make sure your column is right. So number 12 asks you to do that, and then it asks you, what is the average 1 year scoring difference in reading test scores in the school? So now it's basically asking us, what's the average? So we know how to get average. We just go to the column, scroll down, all the way down, and we know down at the bottom right, or at the bottom, that it's going to give us the average. And I see that average. That average difference is very slight. There's not much difference between year 1, 2022 and 2023 as far as average test score. They're within 1 point of each other. So there isn't a big difference overall in student performance from 2022 to 2023. Some students did worse, some did better. So we have that there. And so the average is there. So you put that average in for number 12. Go at least 2 decimals over. So if it's, I told you it was less than 1, so it's 0 point something something. So give me like a 0.36 or 0.72, whatever that is. You may be able to read it on the screen. If you can, then you'll know what the answer is right there anyway. So the same thing, okay, when it asks you on number 12, what is the average 1 year difference? We have that. And then it asks you in 13 to create an Excel column in your data for average scoring difference for reading scores. And then what is the average 1 year scoring difference in math scores? So there's a little typo there. We need to make this same column for math. So I'm going to start it at the top, and we're just going to put math test score from 22 to 23. Okay, so remember how to do it. I need to go to the top. I know I'm going to get 0 because this person made 122 and 23. So I'm going to start with the H column. And this just equals H2 minus G2. So gives us the answer of 0. And the reason why it's 0 is because the score in 2023 was not higher or lower than in 2022. If it was higher, it would be positive. If it was lower, it would be negative. So make sure you put in 2023 first and then 2022. So I'm going to copy that just like I did on the previous column. Let's just scroll it down. Paste it. And so now I have math test score difference from 22 to 23. And if I scroll all the way up again, just highlight those. And I look down, I have the average difference right down there. Okay, this one's a little more sizable than the previous one. So I have that average difference so what did students on average do in the movement from 22 to 23? And it looks positive. It looks like pretty significant change in test scores where they're doing well. So we have that there. So you can answer number 13 with that. Now, in there, I think it says create an average for scoring difference for reading scores. You need to do it for math scores. That's a typo on 13. So on number 13, create this math score difference. And then what is the average 1 year 22 to 23 scoring difference in math test scores in school? You got the answer. Okay, so we're going to keep those columns. And then number 14 says sort your data so that those who received the backpacks are separated from those who didn't. And then what was the mean test score difference from 22 to 23 for those who received backpacks? So we want to do this for the reading scores. So we want to sort by backpacks. So we know how to do that again. We knew how to do it. We did it before. We're going to do it again. We're going to sort by backpacks because we did a couple of sorts since then. So I'm going to sort and filter in that upper right-hand thing, go down to custom sort. I'm left clicking on all these. I need to go to C. And then I'm going to say, okay. And I got to sort. So backpacks are there. So I can look at the average reading difference test score from 22 to 23 by scrolling down all the backpacks that were no. So this is the average difference for those who did not receive a backpack. So I'm going to scroll down. And I see that there are 200 on my row 226. So there's 225 of them in my count. And I got the average over there. So the average test score for people who didn't receive a backpack, the average test score difference, for those who didn't receive a backpack is right there at the bottom of my screen. And then I could do the same thing for those who did receive the backpack. Because this will be a fun comparison to see how well the backpacks help people's reading scores. So we can see what the average is for the reading score differences in 2023 if you got the backpack. And then we had it if you didn't get the backpack. So right there you have the answer to 13. You have the answer to 14. You have the answer to 15. It wants you to do the same thing for 16. So you can do the same thing for 16. You got it sorted. So we have all the yeses to the backpacks together. You look over in column C and scroll up here on the math test score difference until column C is just all yeses, which is 227 through 401. And we have the average test score difference right there for those who received the backpack. We do the same thing for those who didn't receive it. Scroll up. This will go all the way to the top. And we have the average test score difference for those who didn't receive the backpack. Oh, so we can compare that and say, okay, maybe the backpacks had this effect on test scores. So we can look at reading test scores. We can look at math test scores. So that allows you to answer questions all the way through question 16, question 13 through 16. And then actually question through question 18 allows you to do that. So then it asks you to sort your data by the shuttle service and basically do the same thing again. So you just take over here and make sure you do the entire row, do all the rows, highlight every single row all the way across. I'm going to go down because we're sorting. When you're sorting, make sure you do it every single row all the way across. Okay. Then we're going to sort by D so we can get the shuttle service. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing. We can do it for reading. People who didn't get the shuttle service, what the average was on the reading scores. The average difference, from 22 to 23. We got that. So I can see that at the bottom. We can do the same thing for those who did have the shuttle service. Just scroll down, put that in there. So these answers are going right through 19, 20, 21, 22. We do the same thing with math scores. We got it. Math score difference for those who got the shuttle service. Okay. Wow. Okay. Wow. Math score difference for those who didn't get the shuttle service. Scroll it up. Wow. That's amazing. It's amazing. So we did this. We can see the effect of the shuttle service on math scores differences between 22 and 23. Did giving that shuttle service in 23 help students improve their math scores in comparison to the people who didn't get that shuttle service? So that comparison will be very nice. So that allows you to answer all of those questions. Okay, and then you can I mean, it'll be very nice for your presentation. You're basically saying, okay, we have these differences here among students, how they did last year this year compared to last year. Did these interventions help or hurt? So the lab, we get down, so you're all the way down to 22 now. You've answered that. So you get to 23, sort your data into 4 categories so that you can calculate the test score means and for each one of those. Okay, so you can do that. What it does is it wants you to separate into categories of people who received both the backpack and the shuttle service, those who received the backpack but not the shuttle service, those who received the shuttle service but no backpack, and those who received neither the backpack or the shuttle service. We want to know what their math test difference was and their reading test difference was. Well, you want to sort that where you have each of those together. But guess what? After you sort one and then you sort the other, you already have it here. Notice you got the no's already in D, C, and D. All the no's are together. So if you look at columns 2 through 173, the students, that's the students, 172 students who got no backpack and supplies and no shuttle service, you have that. And then you can, because you see that, you can scroll on the reading test difference scores, and you can find out the average. What's the average test difference for these students? What's the average test difference in math? You can do it for reading and math. And so you can do this and look at each category. The beautiful thing about this is, because there are 2 interventions and there's some overlap, and this is going to be very important for your presentation, because you have those 2 interventions with overlap, you don't know whether it's the backpacks driving change or the shuttle service driving change. So it's important that you separate these into 4 categories: those who got both, those who got backpacks but no shuttle service, those who got shuttle service but no backpack, and those who got neither. And when you do that, you can compare those numbers and you can find out if one is actually driving the change and the other one isn't. Because if you can do compare those 4, and what you want to do is compare those on 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And all you're doing is scrolling down and getting these averages for each group. You're getting reading score average differences, math score average differences for 4 different groups. So that's 8 questions in a row. And all you do is scroll down. What's the difference for those who, yes, they got the backpack, but no, they didn't get the shuttle service? Scroll down for reading, see what the reading difference was. Look at all the yes, no's. What's the average for the yes, no's? When I say yes, no's, I'm talking about columns C and D. I got the average there. Reading's test score change. And if I go to the other side, I get the math test score change for all the yes, no's, just the average change. That's what I'm interested in, is what's that average change? And so I can compare that to see when I do the yes, no on the backpack, I can compare that to those who got the backpack and the shuttle service and find out, is it the shuttle service or is it the backpack? So these numbers will be very interesting. And you could very easily get these, as only take you, honestly, if you're used to Excel, you're going to do this in a matter of minutes. If you're not used to Excel, you have to be careful and carefully go through. And then you get to 31, consider results of the analysis. What new conclusions can be made about the impact of the backpacks and the shuttle services on test scores? So once you get down to 31, look at these previous 8. Compare the reading test scores of the groups and see, make a new conclusion about what the impact is of these interventions. You're going to find something very interesting. Okay, then we get to number 32. We're almost done. 3 more questions. It says, what was the mean math test score from 22 to 23 for those who received the shuttle service by grade? Okay, so all it's interested in is the math test score that might tell you something about what you're going to find in the previous one. And it's only interested in the math test score of those who got the shuttle service. So the first thing we have to do is make sure we have all the shuttle service together, everybody who got the shuttle service. So we're going to put them back together. And so I'm going to highlight every row all the way across, because if I just do a column, it will mix up my data. So I have to make sure every time I sort, because I'm sorting by the shuttle service, I do the entire column. And so I'm going to go sort and filter, custom sort, and then I'm going to column D, and okay. And so now I have all of them. So I have the shuttle service. You look over here to the left, shuttle service no on column D. All the no's are together. We're not interested in the no's here. We're only interested in the yeses, the ones who did. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to 258, and then I see my yes. And all my yeses are together in column D. So this is the group I'm interested in now, is column D, the yeses. Okay, but what I need to know to answer number 32 is what the average is in each grade for the math scores for these yeses. So I need to also, I'm just going to take the yeses and I'm going to sort those by the grade. See the yeses over there? I'm going to sort that, and then I'm going to sort that by the 2023 grade, which is column B. So I'm going to go over here, go up to column B. Now I accidentally put A, put B. Make sure I have B, hit OK. So now I have grades 1 through 7. From 258 all the way down to my last entry, which is 401, my last student. So I have those, and I can look at the average change in test score for each grade by going over to the math test scores and just scrolling down on these for grade 1. And I have the average change in test score from 22 to 23 for those in grade 1. So what I need to do is get some paper and pencil on the side, or I can actually type it in make some columns over there, create 1 through 7. Or I can just type it into my Word file that asks me on question 32. What is the average for these first graders? Then do the same thing for the second graders. It's only a few of them. What is their average? Average change. Same thing for third graders. Go through each one. And you put down the answer, the average change in math test scores from 22 to 23. How much did they go up or down in 2023 in comparison to 2022? And you have those averages. It asks you to do those averages for all grades 1 through 7. So, okay. Then you go to number 33. It says, in a new Excel sheet, create 2 columns, one for grade level. So I'm going to say do it. You can do it in an Excel sheet, or you can just do it on the side here. You just got to clear out your data. Okay. So you just got to make, and all you need is the number on 33, the grade number. So I'm going to put in those grades. Very simple. 1 through 7. Okay. Then I'm going to put in what your average is going to be. What they are, you put that in the column right next to it. Okay. So I'm going to say it's like, these are not what your answers are going to be, but I'll say 2, 2.5, 2.8, 1.7, 3, 2, 5. Okay, I'll put that there. So now I have the grade levels, and I have the average change from 22 to 23 in their math scores for each grade level. So that's over there. So I ask you to do that in 33. Now what it wants you to do is to find the correlation between grade level and average change. This will be very interesting for your presentation. You can say the correlation for this group, this chain, this is there. So I don't know if the correlation will be positive, negative, or 0, but find that correlation and see if it will fit well into your presentation. I have a feeling it will. So how do you get the correlation? So you go to it, another cell. It's sort of like standard deviation, but a little different. It goes equal, and you put COR, and then it says coral. So double click, right click, left click, double left click on coral. And then it says array 1 and array 2. So we have those arrays right up at the top. Grades 1 through 7. So this is array 1. Got that? And then it says what you do, you should put a comma between array 1 and then, okay, let me do this again. Array 1, comma, what? I accidentally, okay, comma, because I want P307 through 3, and then array 2, which will be the next one. Okay. I seem to be having sticky key issues. Let me try it again. Coral equals coral array 1, which is this right here. Okay. Then it asks you to, every time I put the comma there. Okay. Now I want array 2. And I'm going to close that parentheses. Okay. You see I have it there. It's if you look at the side, I have 307 through 313 on this side over here. If you look at my data, I'm going to squeeze that data so you can see it a little easier. So it has it. And so if you look at the top there, my coral is 3P. It's in parentheses. It equals, remember, start with equals, coral, and then P307, which is P307, colon, P313. That's array 1. Then you put a comma, and then you go to Q307, and then put colon 313. So that means these are your two comparisons for the correlation. And down here at the bottom, you see the correlation, 0.569335. That's not what the answer is going to be for your data, because I just put this in there. But that's how you get the correlation. If you look at that top there, you can actually just type it in, just like that, if you want. It's equal. You know, it's probably better for me to put the equals coral, but I can do it. Equals coral, and I can click on that just to make sure it happened. Then it's asking me for array 1. I'm going to put P307, and then I'm going to put my colon to show that what it goes through, P313. Okay, and then I'm going to put my comma, because that's array 1, P307, 313. See how it highlights it over there? I'm going to put my comma in there, and then I'm going to go put Q307, colon, Q313. And I'm going to close that comma up. So that correlation is going to be those two sets right there. And then I'll press enter, and it's the same thing. P.569335. That shows you how to get the answer to 33. It's very easy, because you could just type these in. It's only 7 grades. So make sure you don't put grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. Make sure you just put 1 through 7, just the number, because correlation does only numbers. So make sure you put just the numbers, okay? And then you'll have the answer to 33. And then to finish, number 34, what conclusion about the importance of grade level and effectiveness of the shuttle service to improve math scores? So whatever your conclusion is, look at that correlation coefficient and tell me what your conclusion is about the importance of the shuttle service to certain grades. Okay, that will be your assignment. Once you do that assignment, test 2, do the assignment, type that in, email it to me, and I will grade it and get back to you right away. So it should be, some of you will do this very quickly. If you have any struggles, send me an email, and maybe you and I can sit down one-to-one and do this. But it's important that you go through and do these and get the right answers, because this data will be your presentation. It will be the presentation for the final grade. And so I think a lot of you just will be able to zoom through this. It'll be a lot easier than you think it will be. So get to it, go ahead and head in and get it done. And once you get it done, send it to me. If you have any questions, like I said, if you have any questions, email me. If you have, I will go through it step by step with you if you like, and we will get it done. The important thing is we get this done so that you can present this data and you'll have the right answers, and you will be able to present. So thank you very much for listening to this video. I hope it covers your questions for test 2. If it doesn't cover those questions, be sure and get back with me. Thank you very much. Have a great day.